AITA for redirecting my paycheck when my wife expected me to fund her 90-day separation? I'm Jonathan, 38, and I'd been Claire's husband for 7 years when she made that proposal. For most of our marriage, our life had felt almost boring in the best possible way. I woke up before the alarm, started the coffee, and left her mug on the warmer because she always forgot it on the counter. She handled the grocery list. I handled the stack of mail that collected beside the fruit bowl. Our mortgage, utilities, insurance, and a few household subscriptions came out of a single joint checking account. We also had an emergency savings account that we had agreed was for things like medical bills, major car repairs, or something in the house suddenly leaking through a ceiling. We weren't perfect. We argued about dishes, weekend plans, and whether the thermostat needed to be set low enough to store meat. But we had one rule from the beginning that I thought we both respected. We don't police each other, Claire had said early in our marriage. We just don't build private lives that require lying. I agreed with that. I never asked for her passwords. I never checked her phone. I didn't need a location app to know where she was. She had male friends. I had female friends. The line was secrecy, not friendship. That worked until Aaron came back into her life. At first, he was just a name from the past. Claire mentioned that an old friend had reached out after running into someone they both knew. She told me Aaron had been part of her social circle years before we met. Nothing dramatic, she said one evening while rinsing a plate. We just lost touch. I didn't think much of it. People reconnect. A week later, she showed me a photo he had sent of a ridiculous haircut he used to have. We both laughed. Then Aaron's name started showing up everywhere. Aaron recommended a show. Aaron remembered a restaurant Claire used to love. Aaron had sent her a song. Aaron had a rough week. Aaron needed advice. Aaron understood why she was frustrated about something I had said. That last part got my attention. One night, I walked into the living room, and Claire was curled into the corner of the couch with her phone close to her face. She was smiling in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in months. When she noticed me, her thumb moved quickly, and the screen went dark. I didn't accuse her of anything. I'm not asking to read your messages, I said. I'm asking why you suddenly act like I interrupted something. Her expression changed immediately. Because you're making it weird. I asked one question, and the question is weird. I let it go that night. Not because the answer satisfied me, but because I wanted to see whether it was a bad moment or a new pattern. It became a pattern. Claire started taking her phone into the bathroom. She turned it face down during dinner. If Aaron called while I was in the room, she declined it and texted him instead. Plans we had made would suddenly change because he was having a hard time or needed someone who knew the history. One Saturday morning, we were supposed to pick up a few things for the house and then have lunch. She came downstairs already dressed and holding her keys. Aaron needs to talk, she said. We have plans. It's not a big deal. We can do errands tomorrow. Is he in some kind of emergency? She rolled her eyes. Not everything has to qualify as an emergency for me to care about it. That's not what I asked. She left anyway. By 5, she hadn't come home. I sent one text. Are you safe? And should I expect you for dinner? She replied 20 minutes later. I'm fine. Stop acting like my parole officer. When she finally came in, she dropped her purse on a chair and walked past me as if I were the one who had ruined the day. I'm allowed to have friends, she said. I never said you weren't. You keep acting suspicious. Because you cancel plans, disappear for hours, and get angry when I ask whether you're coming home. I don't have to report every movement. No, but secrecy changes what this is. She gave a short laugh. You sound insecure. That word became her favorite answer. Any question was insecurity. Any request for basic consideration was control. Any mention of Aaron meant I was jealous. She never had to answer the actual question because she could label me first. I started paying closer attention, not to her phone or her movements, but to what was already mine to see. I had always been the one who reviewed our monthly statements before archiving them. For years, the process took 10 minutes. Mortgage, insurance, groceries, utilities, a few meals out, nothing surprising. Now there were more charges I didn't recognize. They weren't huge. $140 at a wine bar. $86 at a restaurant on a night. She said she was helping Aaron sort through old boxes. A rideshare charge after midnight. Several small purchases from home stores. When I asked about the restaurant, she said Aaron had paid her back in cash. Where did the cash go? I asked. Do I need to submit receipts now? No. I'm trying to reconcile the account. It's one dinner, Jonathan. It was never one thing. That was what bothered me. It was a collection of small changes, each one too minor to justify a blow-up, but together they made the house feel like a place where I was being managed. I stopped confronting her every time. I downloaded the statements, noted the unexplained expenses, and kept paying attention. Then, on a Tuesday night, Claire asked me to sit down at the kitchen table. She had a legal pad in front of her. There were several lines written in neat handwriting. She didn't look nervous. She looked prepared. I need space, she said. I pulled out the chair across from her. What does that mean? A trial separation. 90 days. I didn't answer right away. She continued as though she had been waiting to deliver a presentation. We don't have to tell everyone. I stay here, and we keep the house running normally. We can use separate bedrooms. You keep paying the bills the way you have been. I need emotional space without everything becoming a financial crisis. What happens during the 90 days? I figure out what I want. With Erin? Her jaw tightened. I'm not going to lie to you. I need to understand what I feel. And what am I allowed to do? That's not a helpful way to ask. It's a clear way to ask. She looked down at her notes. I don't think either of us should make permanent decisions. You shouldn't date. I'm not ready to see that, and it would make it impossible to repair things if I decide I want to. I stared at her. You're asking to see Erin while I stay faithful to you. I'm asking you not to be reactive. And I keep paying most of the expenses. You already pay most of them. Because we're married and sharing a life. We are still married. Then why are you dating someone else? I didn't say dating. What do you call spending 90 days deciding whether he's worth leaving me for? She pushed her chair back slightly. This is exactly why I need space. You turn everything into an attack. I kept my voice even. Repeat the terms. I want to be sure I understand. She hesitated, then did. She would stay in the house. We would not publicly announce a separation. I would keep the mortgage and normal household expenses paid. I would not date or pursue anyone. She would continue seeing Erin because she needed clarity. At the end of 90 days, she would decide whether she wanted counseling, divorce, or a different arrangement. Then she said the sentence I never forgot. You can accept it, or you can leave. I sat there for a few seconds, looking at the handwriting on her legal pad. She had underlined 90 days twice. So you want single-person freedom and married-person security? I said. That's not fair. It's exactly what you described. I need time. You can have time. But I'm not going to audition for my own marriage while paying for the stage. Her eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me financially? No. I'm telling you I won't fund a trial run where you explore another man and reserve the right to keep me waiting. I didn't think you'd be this cruel. I didn't think you'd ask. I stood up, took my coffee mug to the sink, and told her I wasn't discussing it further that night. She mistook my calmness for bluffing. The next morning, I got up at the usual time. I started the coffee out of habit, then stopped before pouring hers. I sat at the small desk where we kept household paperwork and began separating what was joint from what was optional. I redirected my future direct deposit into an account in my name. I did not empty the joint checking account. I left enough to cover the mortgage, utilities, insurance, and other legitimate obligations that were already due. I printed the balances before and after every change. I removed Claire as an authorized user from one credit card that was solely in my name. I canceled an automatic transfer that had been funding a personal spending account she used for shopping and outings. I stopped paying for 2 subscriptions that only she used and removed my card from a food delivery account tied to her profile. I did not touch her personal account. I did not block her access to joint funds that were already there. I did not shut off utilities, cancel insurance, or move the mortgage payment. I created a spreadsheet with dates, confirmation numbers, and the reason for each change. Then I called Avery. Avery was a family attorney recommended by someone I trusted. I expected our first conversation to feel dramatic. It didn't. Avery asked questions in a flat, methodical way. Did you drain any joint account? No. Have you stopped paying the mortgage? No. Utilities? No. Insurance? No. Did you remove money that belongs to her? No. Good. Don't start. I explained Claire's proposal and read the conditions from notes I had written after the conversation. Avery was quiet for a moment. Has she given you anything in writing? Not yet. Ask her to. Do not sign a document she drafted. Keep paying obligations you can prove. Optional support is different from shared legal responsibility, but consistency matters. It feels clinical. It needs to be clinical right now. Angry people create bad evidence. Calm people preserve it. Avery told me to communicate about money in writing, document property I removed from the house, and avoid arguments that went in circles. You don't need to be generous to be safe, Avery said. You need to be consistent and documented. By lunchtime, Claire had noticed the automatic transfer was gone. She called 3 times. I was in no mood to be baited, so I let the first 2 go to voicemail. I answered the third. My card was declined, she said without a hello. What were you buying? That's none of your business. Then why are you calling me? You canceled my money. I canceled an optional transfer from my future income. You're punishing me because I won't let you control me. I'm paying what I'm obligated to pay. You don't get to decide that by yourself. You decided by yourself that our marriage could become a 90-day experiment. Her voice rose. This is financial abuse. I'll discuss money in writing. Send any request by email. Don't hang up on me. I'm not arguing in circles. I ended the call. Within an hour, she sent an email with the subject line financial retaliation. She said I had cut her off without warning and demanded that I restore every transfer and card by the end of the day. I replied with 6 sentences. I listed the mortgage, insurance, utilities, and household obligations that were still funded. I said the joint checking account remained available for legitimate shared expenses. I stated that optional personal spending would no longer be paid from my income during a separation. I asked her to identify any essential expense she believed was not covered. She didn't answer that question. Instead, my phone started filling with messages from her family. Diane, Claire's mother, left a voicemail. She is still your wife, Jonathan. All she asked for was time. Cutting off a woman because she has a male friend is cruel. Call me. Caleb, Claire's older brother, texted me. Real husbands don't financially starve their wives because their ego got bruised. I stared at that message for a long time. The phrase financially starve would have been almost funny if it hadn't been so calculated. The refrigerator was full. The house was current. Claire had her own income, her own checking account, and access to money in the joint account. What had stopped was her assumption that my paycheck would remain a personal resource while she decided whether I was replaceable. I replied once to Diane. I'm not discussing distorted private matters over voicemail. I'm willing to address documented facts in the right setting. To Caleb, I wrote. You were given an incomplete version. I won't argue by text. Then I saved everything. That night, Claire came into the room where I had been sleeping and stood in the doorway. You embarrassed me. I haven't spoken to anyone. You made me tell my family what you did. You told them a version that made you sound abandoned. You did abandon me. I'm in the same house. Emotionally. You asked to explore a relationship with another man. I asked for space. With rules that apply only to me. She crossed her arms. You're proving why I can't talk to you. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny left. Put your proposal in writing, I said. I already told you what I need. Then writing it down should be easy. She walked away. 2 days later, she emailed me a document titled Temporary Marital Space Agreement. It had no attorney's name on it. It said I would continue all customary household and spousal support for 90 days. Neither party would file for divorce. Neither party would change access to accounts. And neither party would engage in romantic or sexual conduct that could harm reconciliation. There was one exception. Claire could maintain existing supportive relationships necessary to evaluate her emotional well-being. She had built Aaron into the agreement without naming him. I forwarded it to Avery and did not sign. Avery replied, Do not edit this yourself. Do not debate the language. Preserve it. That weekend, I reviewed the joint accounts more carefully. I wasn't searching for evidence of an affair. I was trying to determine how much money needed to remain available for upcoming bills. I went line by line through the joint checking account and the emergency savings account. That was when I saw a transfer for $7,800. The transfer had been made from our emergency savings into checking nearly 4 weeks before Claire proposed the 90-day separation. The memo field was blank. 2 days later, most of it had left the account through an electronic payment to a property management company I didn't recognize. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Our emergency fund had been built slowly. We had skipped trips, delayed replacing furniture, and added money whenever we could. Claire knew exactly what that account was for. I downloaded the statement and searched the property company's name. It managed furnished short-term rentals. I still didn't confront her. The household email account was shared because that was where we kept utility bills, receipts, home repair confirmations, and travel reservations. Claire had used it for years. I typed the exact payment amount into the search bar. The first result was a rental confirmation. The apartment had been reserved for 4 months. The security deposit, first month's rent, service fee, and cleaning fee matched the amount pulled from our emergency savings. The lease had been signed in Claire's name 26 days before she sat me down with her legal pad. There were more emails. A delivery receipt for a bed frame and mattress. A box with towels, dishes, a small kitchen set, and a lamp. A confirmation for internet service. A credit card receipt for $186.42 at a home store, charged to our joint card. I printed only what was tied to shared accounts and the shared email. I forwarded copies to Avery. Then I sat at the desk for almost an hour without moving. Until that moment, part of me had believed Claire was panicking in real time. I thought Erin had become an emotional escape, and she was pushing boundaries to see what I would tolerate. The apartment changed that. This wasn't confusion that had suddenly become a bad idea. It was a plan that existed before the conversation. She had already rented the place. She had already furnished it. She had already used our emergency money to build a separate life, and then asked me to keep the original one funded. That was the first time the whole thing stopped feeling messy and started feeling engineered. I searched the shared email by Diane's address because Claire had used that account to send her mother travel confirmations before. A recent thread appeared with the subject line 90 days. The message from Claire was dated 3 days before she spoke to me. Mom, I'm going to tell him this week. He'll keep the house paid for during the 90 days. I need enough time to see whether Erin is actually someone I could start over with, or if this is just me being unhappy. Jonathan will be angry, but he always calms down when things get practical. Please don't tell Caleb yet. Diane had replied. Are you sure Jonathan agreed to this? Claire answered. He hasn't heard it yet, but he won't risk the house or make himself look unreasonable. I read that sentence twice. He always calms down when things get practical. She knew me well enough to predict my self-control. She had simply mistaken self-control for surrender. There was another email in the same account, this one forwarded from Claire's personal address. Erin had written, I wouldn't have kept meeting you if he wasn't okay with the open arrangement. I don't want to be the guy sneaking around behind someone's back. Claire replied, he knows the marriage is basically over. The 90 days are just to make the transition easier. So there were 3 stories. To me, she was confused and needed space. To Erin, I had accepted an open arrangement and our marriage was functionally over. To her family, I had become jealous, controlling, and financially abusive because she had a male friend. I made a timeline. I listed the date of the emergency fund transfer, the rental payment, the furniture delivery, the email to Diane, the message to Erin, the date of the separation proposal, Claire's text telling me I was not allowed to date, the date I changed my direct deposit, the dates of every mortgage and utility payment that cleared afterward. One claim, one date, one source. Avery reviewed it with me and removed anything that wasn't necessary. Don't send this to the whole family, Avery said. Don't post it. Don't threaten her with it. The value is in using it where it matters. What does that mean? It means we ask for a formal temporary arrangement, use of the house, payment of shared expenses, return of keys if someone is using another residence, accounting for the emergency funds, property pickup, a neutral meeting. Her family thinks I'm a monster. Her family doesn't decide the settlement. That advice was harder to follow than it sounds. Silence can feel like losing when someone else is telling the story. Every time Diane left another voicemail, I wanted to send the rental receipt. Every time Caleb called me selfish, I wanted to forward Claire's email. I didn't. I asked that all meaningful communication happen by email. Claire reacted badly to that. She preferred conversations where the subject could change every 30 seconds. She would start with the canceled spending transfer, shift to Erin, accuse me of ignoring her feelings, bring up an argument from 2 years earlier, then cry when I tried to return to the actual issue. In writing, she had to choose a claim. One evening, She came home while I was packing personal documents and a few things I didn't want left unsecured. My passport, tax records, copies of account statements, my father's watch, a small box of letters from my grandmother, 2 external drives containing personal files. She leaned against the doorframe and watched me. You're really doing this. You asked for a separation. I asked for 90 days. You rented an apartment before asking. Her face went still. That was the first time I let her know I had found it. What are you talking about? The short-term rental paid from the emergency fund. She recovered quickly. I needed somewhere safe to think. You told me you were staying here. I didn't know whether you'd become hostile. I haven't raised my voice at you. You're emotionally hostile. I'm taking my documents and personal items. I'll email you a list. She stepped into the room. You went through my private information. It was in the household email and paid from our joint accounts. That doesn't give you the right to investigate me. I reconciled our money. You're cheap, jealous, and unstable. I looked at her. You're trying very hard to make me yell. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I placed my father's watch in the box and sealed it. I'm taking my passport, personal records, and family keepsakes. I'll email the itemized list tonight. You're abandoning the house. No, I'm securing personal property during the separation you requested. She followed me into the hallway. Where are you going? Away from this conversation. That night, I stayed elsewhere. I did not disappear. I emailed Claire the property list, confirmed that the mortgage and utilities remained scheduled, and gave her a number for urgent house matters. The next morning, she sent a 3-page email accusing me of surveillance, abandonment, financial abuse, intimidation, and emotional cruelty. I forwarded it to Avery. Avery's reply was brief. Do not answer the adjectives. Answer only factual requests. There weren't any factual requests. Through counsel, I proposed a temporary written arrangement. The house payments would continue from the joint account. Each of us would cover personal expenses from personal income. Neither of us would incur new joint debt. The emergency fund withdrawal would be accounted for in settlement discussions. Personal property pickups would be documented. Since Claire had secured another residence, use of the house and possession of keys needed to be clarified. Claire refused the first draft. Then she asked for a meeting. She said her mother and brother would attend because she didn't feel safe being pressured alone. Avery suggested a neutral conference room with a mediator present. No dinner. No family event. No audience beyond people directly involved. I agreed. Claire arrived with Diane and Caleb. Diane's mouth was tight. Caleb barely nodded at me. Claire carried a printed copy of her proposed 90-day agreement and set it beside her chair. The mediator explained that the purpose was limited: temporary expenses, property access, keys, and disputed joint funds. Claire spoke first. Jonathan abandoned the home after I asked for a brief period of space. He cut me off financially, removed access to money, and accused me of having an affair because I have a close male friend. I wanted counseling after 90 days. He immediately started preparing for divorce. Diane put a hand on Claire's arm. She is still your wife, Jonathan. All she asked for was time. Caleb leaned forward. You don't get to financially starve my sister because you're insecure. I looked at him. Then let's use dates instead of adjectives. He sat back. Claire shook her head. This is what he does. He turns feelings into an audit. The mediator asked me to explain my position. I didn't give a speech. I placed the latest mortgage statement on the table. The mortgage was paid on the 1st. Then the utility confirmations. Electric, water, gas, and insurance remained current. Then the joint checking statement. The account was not emptied. Claire retained access to existing joint funds. What stopped were optional transfers from my future income and a card solely in my name. Caleb looked at Claire. You said he froze everything. He basically did. No, I said. I stopped paying personal spending after she requested separation. You're leaving out why I needed separation, Claire said. I'm addressing the financial claim first. I placed her proposed agreement beside the mediator's copy. This says I continue customary support for 90 days and cannot date or pursue anyone. Diane looked confused. That sounds mutual. It isn't. I pointed to the exception allowing Claire to maintain an existing supportive relationship to evaluate her emotional well-being. That exception was Aaron. Claire's face flushed. You're twisting language. I took out the text message she had sent after our first conversation. You are not dating anyone during this. If you do, you're proving you never cared about saving us. Then I set down the email where she wrote that she needed 90 days to determine what she felt with Aaron. Caleb read it silently. Okay, he said. That's not great, but it doesn't prove an affair. I haven't claimed a physical affair. You told everyone she cheated. I said she proposed seeing another man while requiring me to stay faithful and keep paying. That is what her own writing says. Claire's voice shook. I was confused. I nodded once. You told me that. I placed the bank statement in front of the mediator. This transfer occurred 26 days before the proposal. The mediator read the amount. What was it for? I put down the rental confirmation. A 4-month furnished apartment. Diane's hand came off Claire's arm. Claire stared at the papers. I already explained that. I needed somewhere safe. You told me you planned to stay in the house. I didn't know what you would do. You rented it before asking. She turned toward her mother. I was scared. Diane looked at the rental date, then at Claire. You told me this started after he cut you off. It became necessary because I knew how he would react. I placed the furniture delivery receipt beside the rental confirmation. Bed frame, mattress, towels, kitchen supplies, and a lamp. Paid before the proposal. Caleb's expression changed. Where did the money come from? Our emergency savings. Claire snapped at him. It was marital money. I had a right to use it. For a hidden apartment? He asked. For space. The mediator raised a hand before they could argue. I continued. This email was sent to Diane 3 days before Claire spoke to me. Diane's face lost color before she even read it. She recognized the subject line. I didn't read the entire message aloud. I pointed to one sentence. He'll keep the house paid for during the 90 days. I need enough time to see whether Aaron is actually someone I could start over with. The room went quiet. Diane looked at her daughter. You told me he knew. Claire's eyes filled. I said I was going to tell him. You told me he would keep paying. I assumed we would handle it like adults. I finally looked directly at Claire. You didn't ask me for space. You asked me to finance a backup plan you had already rented. That's not what it was. The date is on the receipt. I was unhappy. You were allowed to be unhappy. You were not entitled to take joint emergency funds, build a private apartment, tell another man I agreed to an open marriage, and then tell your family I cut you off for having a friend. Caleb frowned. What open marriage? I placed Aaron's email on the table. I wouldn't have kept meeting you if he wasn't okay with the open arrangement. Claire covered her face with one hand. Diane read the exchange and whispered, Claire. I didn't know how to explain it to him, Claire said. So you lied, Caleb said. I simplified it. You told him Jonathan agreed. I thought Jonathan would eventually understand. I kept my voice low. There was never an open arrangement. Claire turned toward me. You knew we were struggling. Struggling is not consent. I was confused. I didn't know how to say what I needed. Confusion doesn't explain why my name was still good enough for the mortgage, but not good enough for the truth. Diane looked at me. Why didn't you tell us there was more to it? Because this is a legal and financial separation, not a family vote. I told you I would address documented facts in the right setting. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. I should have asked before I came at you. It wasn't a warm apology, but it was an apology. Claire began crying harder. You all think I planned some evil scheme. I was scared. I felt trapped. Aaron made me feel heard, and I wanted to know whether that meant something. I didn't want to lose the house or destroy everything before I knew. That was the most honest thing she had said. She wanted to test a new life without surrendering the old one. The mediator asked what outcome I wanted from the meeting. I had already decided. The apartment expense needs to be charged against Claire's share in the eventual property division. Personal expenses need to stay separate. Shared obligations should be paid through the joint account under a written temporary agreement. I want a documented key arrangement and scheduled property access. I am not agreeing to a 90-day ban on filing or dating. Claire looked up. So you're filing for divorce? Yes. You decided that before hearing me. I heard you at the kitchen table. The documents only showed me how long you had been preparing. Diane asked for a break. During the break, I stood near the window at the far end of the room. Caleb approached me, hands in his pockets. I thought you emptied the accounts, he said. I didn't. She told me the lights might get shut off. They were on autopay. He looked embarrassed. I should have checked. Yes. He nodded. There wasn't much else to say. When the meeting resumed, Claire agreed to return one set of house keys while temporary use was being sorted out. She confirmed that the apartment was solely in her name. She also agreed not to put additional charges on the joint card. Nothing was magically resolved that afternoon. There was no instant ruling and no dramatic signature ending the marriage in one stroke. But the direction changed. Before the meeting, Claire's story was that I had become vindictive because she wanted space. After the meeting, the questions were about dates, reimbursements, and why she had used emergency savings for a hidden rental. Diane stopped leaving angry voicemails. 2 days later, she sent one message. "I'm sorry I spoke before I knew the facts. I am still trying to support my daughter, but I understand why you took the steps you did." I replied, "Thank you for acknowledging it." Caleb called once. "I was out of line," he said. "You were. I still don't like how cold this has gotten." "Neither do I." That was the end of the call. Aaron contacted me the following week by email. I nearly deleted it without reading, but the subject line was "Claire told me you agreed." His message was short. "She told me you both had an arrangement. She said your marriage had been over for months, and the 90 days were a transition you accepted. I thought this was something you two had agreed on. I would not have continued if I believed I was part of a secret affair." I waited until the next morning before replying. "We did not have an open marriage. I did not consent to her seeing you during a separation while I remained exclusive. I learned about the apartment after she demanded the 90-day arrangement. You have the facts now." He answered once. "I'm sorry. I'm not staying in the middle of a lie." I never heard from him again. Claire did. She called me late that night. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was unsteady. "You contacted Aaron and destroyed everything." I hadn't contacted him, but I didn't call back to defend myself. The email chain showed he had contacted me first. The next morning, Claire sent another message. "He says you told him there was never an arrangement. You knew what that would do." I replied, "There was never an arrangement." I answered a direct question truthfully. She didn't respond. Without Aaron believing the open marriage story, her new life stopped looking romantic. It became a furnished apartment she had to pay for alone. The next rent payment came due. She asked me to reimburse half because she had rented it for the benefit of the marriage. I forwarded the request to Avery. The answer through counsel was no. Claire had her own income, but the apartment, the house-related obligations assigned to her under the temporary agreement, and the lifestyle she had been maintaining were more than she expected. She canceled the internet at the apartment. The rented furniture company charged an early return fee. The property manager enforced the lease terms. I did not celebrate any of that. I also did not rescue her from it. I continued paying the portion of the mortgage and shared obligations specified in writing. Every payment came from a traceable account. Every utility confirmation was saved. When Claire claimed I had abandoned a bill, Avery responded with the date and confirmation number. The accusation of financial abuse lost force because the records were dull and complete. We moved into mediation over the next few months. The $7,800 taken from emergency savings was not treated as a gift to Claire or forgotten as marital money. It was credited against her share of the remaining assets. The charges for furniture and apartment supplies that came from joint funds were handled the same way. I did not take everything. I did not try to leave her broke. She kept her personal account, personal belongings, and her fair share of the marital assets after the agreed credits. I kept my personal records, family keepsakes, and the accounts funded after the date of separation. Shared obligations were divided according to the written agreement until the house was resolved. The hardest part was not the money. It was seeing how quickly a person I had trusted could rewrite a situation depending on who was listening. When Claire spoke to me, she was confused. When she spoke to Aaron, she was practically single. When she spoke to her family, she was a frightened wife being punished. When she spoke to the mediator, she was trying to save the marriage. Each version contained just enough truth to sound believable. She was unhappy. She was scared. She didn't want time. But those feelings had become permission, in her mind, to hide the part that would make other people say no. About 2 months into the legal process, Claire asked to meet privately. I refused. I said any conversation about reconciliation could happen with a counselor or mediator present. She chose a counselor. The session lasted less than an hour. Claire sat across from me with swollen eyes and a tissue twisted between her fingers. "Aaron is gone," she said. "I know. I ended the apartment lease. I know. I made mistakes. Yes. She flinched at how quickly I answered. I never meant to lose the marriage. You prepared a separate home before you spoke to me. I thought I needed a place where I could breathe. You also thought I would keep paying for the house while you decided whether he was better. I didn't think you'd actually treat it like a real separation. The sentence hung in the room. The counselor asked her what she had expected. Claire looked down. I thought he would be angry. Then I thought he'd calm down. Jonathan always wants to fix things. I thought we would take the 90 days, I would figure myself out, and then we would decide. You would decide, I said. She started crying. I was lost. I believe you. That surprised her. You do? Yes. I believe you were unhappy and confused. I believe Aaron made you feel something you wanted. I believe you were afraid to give up the marriage before you knew whether he would choose you. She nodded, crying harder. Then you understand. I understand the motive. That doesn't make me responsible for financing it. She wiped her face. Can we stop the divorce and do counseling for real? I looked at the counselor, then back at Claire. Counseling is for two people trying to repair the same marriage. You were building another life and keeping me as the backup plan. I'm not asking for that now. You are asking now because the other plan failed. That's not fair. It's the timeline. She shook her head. You're so cold. I'm trying not to be cruel. Then give me another chance. I gave you the chance to tell me the truth before any of this. You gave me terms. She reached across the space between us, but I kept my hands in my lap. I still love you, she said. I probably still love parts of what we had. That isn't enough for me to return to a marriage where I know I was the safe option. The counselor asked whether my decision was final. Yes. Claire covered her face. I sat there and felt terrible. Finality did not feel triumphant. It felt like closing a door while someone I once planned to grow old with stood on the other side. But I closed it. The divorce took more time. There were revised proposals, another mediation session, and weeks where the only messages between us concerned documents, payment dates, or property access. The house was eventually handled under the settlement. The emergency fund withdrawal remained charged against Claire's side. Neither of us got every term we wanted, which was probably the clearest sign the agreement was real. Diane attended one final property handoff as a witness. She was quieter than I had ever seen her. Claire handed me a box containing 2 books, an old kitchen timer, and a set of photographs that had been mixed in with her things. I thought these were yours, she said. They are. Thank you. She looked around the nearly empty room. I wish you had fought for me. I set the box down. I did fight for the marriage. I just didn't fight Aaron for ownership of you. She looked away. There was nothing left to argue about. When the final documents were entered, I changed the emergency contact information that still listed Claire. I closed the remaining shared household email after downloading the records we were both entitled to keep. I removed her mug from the warmer and put it in the box of items that belonged to her. For a while, mornings were the strangest part. I would start the coffee and automatically reach for 2 cups. The silence in the kitchen felt bigger than the room. I missed the ordinary version of us more than I missed the final months of the marriage. I also noticed something else. I no longer checked my own tone before asking a simple question. I no longer wondered whether an unexplained charge would become an accusation about insecurity. I no longer felt like I had to prove I was relaxed enough to deserve honesty. I didn't win Claire's family. I didn't destroy Aaron. I didn't leave Claire with nothing. That was never the point. I stopped paying for a role I no longer had. Claire wanted the freedom to test another relationship while keeping my money, my loyalty, and my place as a fallback. When I refused, she called it control. When the records came out, it was clear that the control had been built into her proposal from the beginning. She had the right to leave. I had the right not to fund the exit and wait quietly in case she changed her mind. The marriage ended because I finally treated her separation as seriously as she expected me not to. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.